Kutvach. We're on Memvav Amid Aleph by the two dots, about 9 lines down. This is a very common situation, very practical Gemara. Turn around. If someone brought in their shoes to be fixed by the shoemaker, or they brought in their suit, they sent the suit into the cleaners, and the cleaner sends back a different suit. It got switched. I mean, this is a case that normally comes up with the Shane coats. But over here it was by an omen. Harezi yishtamish bahen. The person, Reuven, sent his suit into the cleaners, to the omen. Shimon's the omen, and Reuven gets back a suit, but it's not his. He recognizes it's not his. Shimon can use it. If Reuven could use it, actually, until Levi, who is the owner of it, who's the real owner of this suit, takes his coat, takes his suit, and gives back the one that's really Reuven's. Zok Gemara. The Beis Ha'avel, that's true by an omen. We got exchange here, but if it's Beis Ha'avel or Beis HaMishta, this is the more typical case. Like, what happens by us? You give into your coat check girl by the chasana your shane coat, and then you come back and you got a size 6. You can't even close. In that case, you can't use it until the person comes in and switches it back. What's the difference? Why is it by an omen? When you give an omen something and he gives you the wrong one, you're allowed to use what he gives you in the meantime. And in the second case, you can't. By a regular case, by a case of a Beis Ha'avel or Beis HaMishta, you're not allowed to use the thing that you were given by mistake. Amarav, Haviyasivne Kamei, I think the Bach changes it to Rav Chia. It's in other cases talking about Rav Chia. Amarav Haviyasivne Kamei de Chavivi. I was sitting in front of it, which also refers to Rav Chia. But Amali and Rav Chia told me, he says what really happened here. The reason why you could use it by when an omen gives you the wrong thing is because the assumption is that what happened was this omen was given this suit that you were given that's not yours. He was given that to sell, and what happened was by mistake he sold your suit. So now this suit is Machlokes Rishonim exactly how this works, but what some of the Rishonim say is if someone gives a suit to the cleaners and tells them to clean it, to sell it, essentially is selling it if it goes into the rishus of the omen. So omen can do with it as he pleases. And because he mistakenly sold yours, he's giving you this suit. In the meantime, then he's going to go track down who he sold it to and tell him it was a mistake, and he'll get it back for you. But in the meantime, he has full discretion to do with this suit that he sent you. It wasn't a mistake. He sent it to you on purpose. You have to assume he was just embarrassed to tell you that he made a mistake and sold your suit. But he's giving you to this as a loaner while he goes to get your actual suit. Amr Chia Breder of Nachman, Lo Shano Elahu. This that we said is a heter to use the wrong beged that you got, the wrong kli that you got from an omen, is only talking about where you're dealing directly with the omen, with the cleaners. Aval ishta yubanav, but if you're dealing with an employee or you're dealing with his wife and children, loy, because they're not giving it. You can't make that justification that we said before, that they're replacing your actual suit with another one that is in their. It's a loaner that they're giving you because that the owner is giving you because he misplaced yours. That's true of him, but it wouldn't. His wife and children, it's probably a mistake. If it's a mistake, it belongs to someone else. He can't use it. Well, who nami and even this that we said, if it goes directly from the omen, that you can use it. If he says here's a talis, avol talischa, but if he said here is your talis, loy. But if he says it's your talis, then obviously he's mistaken. if he knows that it's a loaner, we're suggesting that it's mutter because he's giving you a loaner. The loaner he knows is not yours, but he's just doing it as a temporary stopgap. But if he's saying it's your talis, there would be no reason for him to say he obviously doesn't think it's a loaner. He thinks it's yours, and he's making it's a confusion. And if you're holding on to someone else's thing, then you're not allowed to use it. I love talis didehu because it's not his talis. Omle abai l'rav ta ach vilach ramoy de pumpadisa. I'm gonna tell you what these lawyers in Pumpadisa what they do. Omle havli sarbeloy. If Shimon lent a sarbeloy, which is a kind of cloak to a friend, I'm sorry, someone said not to a friend, Shimon said to Reuven was an omen, he said to Reuven, give me back my cloak that I gave for you to work on. And Reuven answers back, Reuven is an omen, says, I never got your cloak. I deny the whole thing. I don't owe you any cloak. So Shimon says back to him, Isli Sahadi the Chaziza Gabach. Shimon says, but I have Adam that you have my cloak. And the Rashbam clarifies. Let's see the Rashbam 4 lines up from the bottom. The Chaziza Gabach, Beged Echad Ro, Shali. Right? Shimon is saying, you have my Adam saw that there's one beged by you. They don't recognize with clarity that it's Shimon's beged. Obviously we're going to see soon, if they saw that it was in his possession, then the din would be different. They would be able to take it away from him. But they just saw, but they're not certain. They said, we know that you have a beged by you, and we think it's the one that Shimon gave you to work on. And they're saying, could you please give it back? Amalei, hahu achrinahu hava. So Ruvain, who is a slippery character, says, no, the one you saw, that's from a different person. It's not yours. It's mine. Afkinu v'nechzenu. So Shimon said to the Omen, to Ruvain, come, if you're so confident that it's not mine, bring it out. Let the Edom get a good look at it and see if it's really mine. Amalei Ivra, loy mafkinalei. He said, so Reuben said back, you know what? I'm telling you that the emphasis, I'm not bringing it out. It's not going to happen. And the Rashbam explains, because he says, I really think it belongs to someone else, and I'm scared if I bring it out, the Edom are going to say it's yours, and then they're going to take it and it really belongs to a second person, and I don't want that guy to lose out. They're being dishonest. He's being a dishonest, Reuben. He's just trying to get out of having the Edom identify that it really belongs to Shimon. Amarava. So Rava says, Shabbat Kamalei. Lamaisa, the Omen is right. Why is he right? Ra Tanya. We had the Brisa earlier. We said that if an object is identified that it's clearly by the Omen, if someone sees that it's by the Omen, the din is then the Omen has to return it. There's no chazaka. He doesn't get a chazaka that's in his rishus because we know that it's something that belongs to someone else is in his rishus. And now he has to say that he bought it or he has to come with a taina. But the mashmayis in that brisa is if it was not raw, which is like our case, because the Edom did not clearly see that it was his. That's why the Rashbam made sure to clarify that. So then the Omen would have a chazak. So that's what Rava says. Why are you calling them? He says, you could call them Ramoyim, but Lamaisa, the halacha is on their side. Amar Ravashi. Ravashi says, Lamaisa, even though the halacha is on the side of this Omen that's denying and he's refusing to bring it out for the Edom to clarify if it really belongs to the customer, to the Balabayas, be chacham, but if this Balabayas is a chacham, mashvilei ra, he can massage the situation, he could work the situation to his advantage to make it that it becomes that the Edom will get a good look at it. What will he say? The Amalei, Amai tafistalei. Why did you take this? He says this, he whispers to the to the Omen in a way that's deniable. It's not in front of Adam, nobody could hear it. But he makes an admission. Why? He says to him, why did you take it? I know, between the two of us, we both know you have my cloak. Why did you take it? La mishum de elcha gaboy. I'm sorry, the islach gaboy. I know the reason why. It's because I owe you money, and you're trying to use it to get money from me. Hashtrafkinu v'shayminu. He's still whispering to him, say, let's take it out. We'll evaluate how much the cloak is worth and see. We'll see how much it's worth. Let's say he says to, Shimon says to Reuven's holding on to his cloak, says, I owe you $1,000. Let's take out this cloak. We'll see if it's worth, maybe it's worth $100, maybe it's worth $200, and the rest of the money I'll pay you, and you'll keep the cloak. So let's take it out, and we'll see how much it's worth. You'll take yours, meaning I'll pay you the rest of the money, and you'll take the cloak. I'll get the value of the cloak deducted from what I owe you. Now, this whole thing was a fantasy. Shimon didn't owe any money to Reuven. What was he trying to do? He was whispering, so he was going to deny this whole thing. And maybe he even made a moidah before, and he went to Edom, say, even if Reuven says that I said it, I want you to know this is all. It's just a strategy to get Reuven to produce the cloak and bring it out to say, let's get it evaluated. And as soon as it's out of his house, the Edom will say, oh, that's Shimon's cloak. And now it's a case of raw. It's a case where they've positively identified it in Reuven's rishos, and Reuven is a omen who doesn't have a din chazaka, and then Shimon will triumphantly just take the cloak, and Reuven will be standing there gasping like a fish, saying, "What about the whole shuma and the money that you said you owe me?" And he'll say, "Goodbye, sorry, that was all a big story that I made up. All I wanted to do was get you to produce the cloak, so then I could say it was raw." I see from the looks on everyone's faces, you're not sure who you disapprove of more, but. I mean, listen, if it sounds like we're very sympathetic to Shimon, to the customer here, that Reuven was just basically refusing to bring it out, and he didn't want to give it up. So this is Rav Ashi's suggestion. It's not like some scummy lawyer in the office at a strip mall coming up with it.
Reuven needs to be a little bit dumb to fall for it. He knows he doesn't owe any money, so he must feel that okay, there's something fishy here.
It's true. You're right. But people who are greedy are often not so smart about their greed. Amalei Rav Acha Breder Rav Avila Rav Ashi Motzei Amalei. So he said this Lamaisif, this Uman is clever, like you're saying. He smells that there's something fishy going on, but how's he going to get out of it? What he'll say is, he'll tell him, say that, don't worry about getting a shuma. You say you owe me $1,000. I already evaluated it. It's only worth $50, so you owe me $950. Say we'll be Michael on the shuma, and he never produces it, and that way he'll be able to force Shimon basically to produce his cards. He's not going to be able to keep bluffing that he's going to give him money. And at that point, once Reuven will say that to Shimon will say, okay, you know what, I'm walking away from this. I'm not paying you $950 to get my $50, $100 suit or cloak. Zok to Gemara. Aris Elin Chazaka. A sharecropper does not have a chazaka. This is what is quoting from the Mishnah. Someone who is a sharecropper, he's allowed to, he works on the field and he keeps a portion of it for himself. So the Mishnah says that such a person, if he tries to, let's say, Reuven is the original owner and Shimon is the sharecropper, if Shimon is living on it for 3 years, he can't say to Reuven, you sold it to me and I have a chazaka, I have a cheskes gimel shana. He's not believed. Because Aris has rights to be there, so there's no reason for Reuven to be Meichel when he goes on it. Why isn't the Aris taking all of the produce, all the harvest from the field for 3 years? Why isn't that a chazaka? An aris only gets half; he gets some percentage. He doesn't get the whole thing. So if he's getting all of the harvest for 3 years, wouldn't Ruvain? Why would the Marakama complain about it? Rav Yochanan Barise Bate Avos. Rav Yochanan says we're talking about an aris who is a permanent aris. It's a family aris. That he's been there already for 20 years on the property. So once the aris has been around for a long time, instead of every year dividing up the harvest half and half, what they do is they say, you the aris take it for 3-4 years, and then our family will get it for 3-4 years because we know you'll stick with it. You're not going to run away as soon as you get your pay. So in such a case, aris doesn't have a chazaka because he could have gotten all of the produce for 3 years straight. Amar Rav Nachman, aris shachoyed arisin tachtaf, an aris, one of these kind of arisin, an aris who would hold on to it for 3 years. That we said he doesn't have a chazaka, but if he gets other arisim, sub-leasers to work underneath him, yesh le chazaka. That's a chazaka. My timer, the owner Ruvain will not go along with this, that Shimon is hiring Levi to be his aris. He says, I trust Ruvain. He's been my family aris for the last 20 years. I don't want him bringing in a third party to work the field. If it was true that it wasn't sold to the aris, the original owner would have complained when he gets a subcontractor. Rav Yochanan, aris shecholak la'arisin, an aris that divided up to other arisin. So this case of, again, an aris, a family aris that does use it for 3 years in a row. But what he did was, so he wouldn't have a chazaka. But if he got other arisin that he worked together with them, ein le chazaka. There's no chazaka. Even though we just said that if he hires sub-leasers, then it is a chazaka because normally the owner would complain. But if he's chalak, where the aris is himself working together with the people who he hired, my time Eimer Charmanya Ba'alma Shavya, because we say that he just made it. The owner says this is a good thing. He could say I don't have a problem with it. We will say that the owner doesn't have a problem with as long as the aris is working there himself. His whole problem, we said before, when he gets a sub aris, is that the sub aris won't take care of things properly. But in this case, he's working together with them, so we can say that the reason why he did complain is because he's okay with this. He doesn't mind as long as his property is being tended to correctly. He doesn't have an issue, and that's the reason why he didn't complain, and that's the reason why there's no chazak. Shalach le Rav Nachman bar Rav Chisda Rav Nachman bar Yaakov. L'amdeinu Rabbeinu. Aris meyid or eine meyid. If someone is an aris, who, let's say, like we said, Shimon was hired by Reuven to work on his land for half of the crops, can he say edus? The edus that we're constantly talking about over here is an edus to support the claim of Reuven that the property is his. Yehuda is coming and claiming it's not his. Mm-hmm. Can the aris say edus to keep it in the control of the owner? Now it seems like pretty obvious. Like he wants to keep this beneficial financial arrangement. If it gets taken away, he's not going to have it. An aris can't say edus. In fact, the Marvatanya ain't a meid. We learned that it's ain't a meid. So we have different conflicting shitas. Like kasha. When do we say aris can't say edus? That's only in a specific case. As the Rashbam explains, but MS, an aris could say edus. There's no problem because if he gets kicked out of this property, he'll go find another. There's plenty of people looking for an aris who'll do his job correctly. It's always hard to find good employees. So if he does a good job, he'll find another place. But that brisa that said that he can't be made, that's talking about where this claim on the ownership of the property happened while there was already fruit It was produce that was in the field. And the aris is about, says another week, I'm going to cut it down and keep half of it. And if it's taken away from the owner, it's taken away from Reuven, I'm not going to, the new owner is going to, he's going to benefit from that harvest. Now, he could still go back to Reuven and say, you have to pay me for my work, like we learned back in Bava Metzia, but that's not as much as the actual produce. So in that case, he's going to lose. But generally speaking, unless there's a specific issue like this one where there's fruit growing and the aris is going to lose, just losing his ability to be the aris is not considered a sufficient financial incentive that he's not allowed to say edus. So now we're going to talk about other things about whether someone can say edus or not. Tana Rabban, Arev Meid L'Loiva, a guarantor, let's say, what is this? Yeah. An Arev, let's say Ruvain borrowed money from Shimon, and Levi said, I agree that if Ruvain doesn't pay, I'm going to pay instead of him. We're going to have soon the din of a kablan. A kablan is more like a co-lender, where he says, he's a guarantor, but he's saying that you could come to me first. But this case over here, of an arid, you have to first go to the borrower. I'm sorry, it's not a co-lender, it's a co-borrower. I said co-lender. A kablan, we'll see the case of kablan. But over here, in this case of an arid, a regular guarantor, you have to first go to the borrower, to Reuven. And if Reuven doesn't produce, then you go to Levi. Shimon could go to Levi to get his money. So an Arev can be made the loiva. This Levi, even though he's backing up Reuven's loan, he can say that when Yehuda comes to say this property that Reuven is holding is not his, Levi, who's his Arev, who's the Arev for Reuven, can say, no, it's not true. It's really Reuven's property. So but that's only as long as Reuven has another property that he could pay back the loan. Right? Reuven owes money to Shimon, and Levi is backing it up. But we say, as long as Reuven has a second property, even though Yehuda is trying to take away the property from Reuven, it doesn't really make a difference to Levi, even though in theory it could come back to bite him, but that's already very attenuated. It's only if Reuven doesn't pay back the loan, and then if he doesn't have, and if the second property gets taken away from him, then finally we'll come to this property that we allow Levi to say edus. Malva made l'loiva. Similarly, a lender can be made for a loiva, right? Reuven borrowed money from Shimon. Shimon can testify against Yehuda, who's coming to take it away from him, that it belongs to Reuven, even though Reuven, in theory, could need that money. He could need that karka to be gaiva from. So I remember who this le'arachuti, again, it's about where there's another piece of property. So Shimon is confident that he'll get either the money from Reuven. If not the money, he'll get the second piece of karka. And if not, then he's not going to worry about that. What's going to happen if this is all that's left? We're not concerned that he's lying to have a second backup for his loan. Lekech Rishon made lekech Sheni. So this is, I find this Rashbam very fascinating. We're just gonna read a little bit of it because of my it's not a real kasha, but I just find it interesting. It's like the Rashbam on like the first wide line. Going Reuven shemach soda achas Levi. Reuven sold the field to Levi. Achas soda acheres liYehuda. Then he sold another field to Yehuda. But also inishme alma ma'ara shel Yehuda. And someone is coming and saying that this karka of Yehuda doesn't belong to him. Loim gazal gazla Reuven mimeni. Yehuda bought it from Reuven. This person who's coming, let's say Yisachar, he's saying it wasn't Reuven's to sell to him. Made Levi Yehuda. Levi, who was the first purchaser from Reuven, could be made that this purchase to Yehuda was a valid sale and it really belonged to Reuven. Okay, what I just find fascinating about this is that we never mentioned Shimon. I don't know why this case skipped over Shimon. I just had to share it. Now, I think what's going on is that Shimon really was owed money from Reuven. And as we're going to see, that's going to be the case, that someone who's owed money is going to come to Reuven and say, "Where's my money?" And then Reuven doesn't have. So then he'll go and he'll take from the Lekeach Sheni. Right? You always take from the most recent purchaser. That's who you can take the Shibuda. But the Rashbam never mentioned Shimon. It doesn't say who this Bal Chayv is. So in any case, let's get back to the Gemara. Lekeach Rishon made Lekeach Sheni. V'hu Islay Arachriti. As long as, in the case of the Rashbam, Yehuda has when the let's say Shimon is the person who is owed money by Reuven. He goes to Reuven. Reuven doesn't have money. Then he goes to Shimon to take away the property that, because Shimon is the most recent buyer. He's like Sheni. As long as Shimon, he's only taking away $100 worth of karka from Shimon. But I'm sorry, from Shimon is taking away from Yehuda $100 worth of karka. As long as Yehuda has $200 worth of karka that he bought from Reuven, and he's only taking half of it, it's not a problem for Levi to be made on behalf of Yehuda that it was really Reuven's karka. Because, again, he has two backups. First of all, he expects that Reuven will pay whatever money he owes. And even if he goes to take from Yehuda, he'll be able, even if Yehuda lost this piece of property that Levi is being made on, he'll still have another piece of property that he could use to back up the loan. The Gemara continues weiter. Kablan. So we had mentioned before a different type of arif. The Rashbam explains a kablan is where a lender, instead of lending, let's see how he describes it. Look the Rashbam. Arif kablan shekibel hamoetz miyadei shel malva. Let's say Shimon is the lender, but rather than giving the money directly to Reuven, who's the borrower, he gave it to a third party. He gave it to Levi. Levi then was the one who gave it to Reuven. In such a case, with such a involved guarantor is not just a guarantor, but literally took the money from the lender and handed over to the borrower. The lender can go to whichever he wants. He either could go to the kabbalan or to the borrower to get his money back. Amri lo meid, v'amri lo ein meid. Some say he could be made, and some say he can't. We had said in our Gemara that a arev could be made as long as there's karka. Over here, we're saying even if the kabbalan has karka, it could be that that he can't be made. Even if the borrower, yeah. Whether can he be made on the behalf of the borrower? So the Gemara explains. Amila made ka'arav dam. Some people say, just like we say in Arev, a guarantor can be made because he doesn't expect. He says as long as there's karka, additional karka by the borrower, I'm not worried. The lender will take from the borrower before he takes from me, and he'll first use that other karka. V'amila ain't made something he can't. The nichale de lahevi biyade travayu de kiyasi balchoy my deboy shakel. Because he's worried about a specific case that Rashbam explains that what happens if the borrower has, in this case, we say that the lender can take from either the borrower or from the kabbalan equally. What happens if the borrower has two pieces of property, one's ziburis and one's beinanis, and the kabbalan also has beinanis? If this property that the kabbalan is being made to keep in the reshus of Reuven, of the borrower, is, let's say it's a beinanis, so all that Reuven be left, if that would be taken away as ziburis, then the lender will go, instead of taking the ziburis from the borrower, he'll go take the beinanis from the kabbalan. So the kabbalan has a vested interest, not just in the total amount of karka that's by the borrower, but also that it should be karka that the lender is going to want to take, so that will keep him off the hot seat. So therefore, even though an arev can testify a kabbalan because he has this additional liability, potential liability, he can't be made even if Reuven has extra property. Amr of Yochanan. What time is it? 10, 12? We'll give it another couple of minutes. Like I said, we have to try to get ourselves a little extra in pocket for Tisha B'Av. Rav Yochanan, Omen ein li chazaka. An Omen doesn't have a chazaka. Ben Omen yesh le chazaka, but the son of an Omen has a chazaka. Aris ein li. These are the dinim of the Mishnah. An Aris also ein li chazaka. He doesn't have a chazaka, like I said. An Omen and an Aris, there is no reason for the owner to complain about them. So therefore, they're holding on to it for 3 years is not a chazaka. But a ben Aris yesh le chazaka. The son of an Aris does have a chazaka. Gazlan who ben Gazlan ein le chazaka. But the Gazlan and the son of a Gazlan, both of them don't have a chazaka. If a Gazlan, we're going to see exactly what we're talking about by a Gazlan. But neither of them can have a chazaka. Ben benoishal Gazlan yesh le chazaka. What are we talking about? What's the aleph? Either asu b'tanasei de'avuin. If all these cases, the son of a aris, or the son of an omen, or the son of a gazlan, they're all coming and saying, my father made a chazaka in this property. It originally belonged to Reuven, but now my father, who was the omen, my father was the aris, my father was the gazlan, he had it in his rishus. If the son is not any better because he says the son of Aris, or the son, his chazaka is not any better if he's saying my father made a chazaka. The father's chazaka wasn't believed, so when the son claims it, it's also not believed. Even though we say tainin lay, that doesn't help. He's just coming b'kayach the father. He's not saying he bought it himself. He's masking that it belonged originally to Reuben. Also, and if we're talking about, he's not saying I have it because of my father. How my father got. Even a Ben Gazlan, why can't, if he's not saying that I got it because my father stole it, so he could say, he's saying I have it, I inherited it from my father. So he could say, why is he not believed? He should be able to have a chazaka as long as he's holding on to it. He's not saying he's not a ganef. A ganef is not neman. A ganef has no neman. So when he makes a chazaka, he's not neman. But if he's saying that it's because of my own chazaka, why shouldn't he be believed? So I'm like tzricha. The ka'amri edim b'feneinu haydalai. We're talking about where their edim say that the original owner who's coming to take back from the omen who was the son of the omen who was matzik, or the son of the not the omen, the aris. He's saying the father he has edim that Reuven admitted that it was originally that he bought it, that the aris who's a muhsik actually bought it. So it seems like an open and shut case, right? The person who's coming to say it's mine is masking that it was really that he had originally been masking that it was sold. So by a ben aris and a ben omen, so they're believed. They have an edim. They have edim that say that the original owner admitted that he sold it, so they're the chazaka is really not relevant. It's because he admitted that he sold it. But in the case of the robber, someone who's known to be a gazlan, avagav the oidi nami noimehem, he's still not believed. Could Rav Kahana, because Rav Kahana, ilav the oidi le havimamti le ulcharmei l'shikper. Because he's afraid this Gazlan, it's not just that he's not Neman. This Gazlan is a thug. He's intimidating. And the reason why, it's true that Adam saw them being maida to the Gazlan that he sold to him, but that was because of the intimidation. So the Adis is not relevant. It's true that they admitted, but since he's a known Ganef, so it's also known that people are scared to say no to him. Amarava. Even the grandson of a chazaka doesn't have a chazaka. Even the grandson, when he's coming to say that there's a chazaka, he's not neman. Hechidami, If he's coming to say, not that I got it from my father and I don't know where he got it from, but he's coming to say specifically, I got it from my grandfather, and my grandfather bought it. He was machzik in it, but his grandfather was a Goslin, and therefore even though there are Eidim, we assume that they were intimidated. Hekidami Goslin. What do we consider Goslin? It's only where we know that he sold, that he was the ganef of this field. It's very limited. that which we say there's no chazaka for a Goslin, it's only on the field that we know that he once stole. So once he stole it, if he tries to make a chazaka again on that field, he's not neman. Rav Chizda Amar, going to base pliny shahargin nefashal haliskem mammon. So the first din was the standard case of that someone can have a chazaka if he's a Goslin. There was a second din, which is similar to what we just said before, why a child can't have a chazaka even when there's Eidim. That's talking about where someone who's known to kill, hargin nefashos, that he's known to kill people he's known to be part of the mafia. So someone like that can never have a chazaka because even no one's going to oppose him. Taner Rabban, Omen ein lechazaka. Yarim umnasa yesh lechazaka. Once he's no longer an omen, then he can make a chazaka. If he has something, if he was a shoemaker, and after he quit being a shoemaker, he has a shoe in his possession that he got after he quit, then he has a chazaka on it. Or saying the chazaka, Yarim meisasa yesh lechazaka. After he quit, after he leaves, then he could have a chazaka. Ben shecholak the isha shenitzkar. So this is the last two cases of our Mishnah. We said a son cannot have a chazaka in his father's property, and a wife can't have a chazaka in her husband's property because they're like a apotropos. They get a dinner. They will often be given rights to use it, so they're using it as not a chazaka. But if the son who no longer deals with his father, he's not living at home, and a wife who gets a get, then there's no reason to assume that they got any special rights in this man's property. So if they make a chazaka, they have a chazaka. So Kumar, Bishlam ben Shechalak Itztrich, that even if a son who left, but still, I don't know. I think I've done more chasanas than you. Children still feel that they have certain rights, even after you've sent them on their way and said, "Go build your bayis nem b'Yisrael." They still feel they can come into your house and use your freezer as their own personal freezer, and many other things. So that's why we have to say, even if Ben Shechalak, after he leaves, he still doesn't have a chazaka because he's living there. Kamash will underline. That's what we have to say now. Elisha is garsha pshita. What do you have to tell me about an isha? L'chayr it's pashit. She has no good vibes from her husband. So I'm like tzricha. We're talking about someone with a suffix gerushin where he threw it to her, and it's not clear whether it was within her daled alas. He still has to pay mezainis. Since there still is a connection, he still has some responsibility. So that maybe he left her. He said, you use that field to get your mezainis that I owe you, that I have to give you, while megureshes ve'ein megureshes. So therefore, it's not a raya. Her living on it. One might say it's not a chazaka. I mean, it shouldn't be a chazaka. Kamasma, no, once it's even megureshes ve'ein megureshes, he's already indicated that he's done with her. He's willing to make a suffix gerushin, and therefore her chazaka is a good chazaka. Okay, we'll stop over here. We'll start. We'll do tomorrow at 8:30. Thank you for the extra time.
Yes, Good night.